Hello everybody, how do you do? We've been getting a lot of requests lately for Sprite sheet programming tutorials. While I cannot show the advanced concepts from the Sprite Programming Mastery book, I can demonstrate some of the free basic preview material from the book here on video. So in this exercise we'll demonstrate a basic CSS Sprite sheet animation sequence that renders a bouncing ball. Before we get into it, let's take a look at the finished product. You can see we have a bouncing basketball. So if you were programming a video game that would run on the web, you might want to use some kind of code like this if you wanted to have a basketball game. Now let me also show you the sprite sheet itself. So you see this here is the sprite sheet that renders this animation. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frames in that sprite sheet. And each frame is 50 pixels by 50 pixels. So if you could imagine 6 squares within this sprite sheet, each one would be 50 by 50 pixels. So each frame is 50 by 50 pixels. All we have to do is run through all of those frames fast enough to where it renders a smooth animation. And we can make it play at any speed we want. So let's go into an example.html file and let's start with a div. And this div is going to represent our ball. So let's give it an ID equal to ball. And that's it for the HTML. Now let's put a style element in place above that. Now within that style element, let's go ahead and target the ball by its ID. Now we can put our style rule in between curly braces. First thing we'll do is give it a background property to the URL image path. So I have my image, my ballbounce.png sprite sheet is in an images folder that's relative to this example.html. And if you'd like to see that image again, here it is. So I'm just using this sprite sheet as the background image. Now I want to set the width and height for the ball to be 50 pixels by 50 pixels. That way it doesn't show the whole sprite sheet. I just want it to show one quadrant or one section, one frame of that sprite sheet by default. Now if we look at this in any browser, that's the result you get. It's only the first frame of the sprite sheet. But sprite sheets can be used for many things. They don't have to be used for an animation. A sprite sheet can just hold all of the graphics for your web applications or your software or your website. Now the next thing we need is an animation setting in the CSS. So what we're doing in this line is we're calling a ball bounce animation to run for this ball element. So we have to put a keyframes animation called ball bounce, and we'll do that in just a second. But the speed of the animation is going to be 0.7 seconds, or the duration is going to be 0.7 seconds. You can just think of this as speed. You want it to go faster, you make this a lower number. If you want it to go slower, you make this number higher. Now the steps is directly relative to how many frames are within our animation. And you can see clearly that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frames in our sprite sheet animation sequence. Now this is the first frame here, which is keyframe 1. And these are all transitional frames in between that make up the animation. So we're just going to set up a keyframe animation that steps over 6 frames. That's why we put steps 6. And we want it to loop infinite. We want it to play more than once, so we put infinite there. If you want it to play 10 times, bounce only 10 times, or play the animation sequence 10 times, then you put a 10 there. But I want it to just keep looping and playing forever. Now the last simple little thing we need is the ball bounce keyframes animation setup. Okay, so here's the empty shell for that. We have a keyframes animation, name of ball bounce. So that means this element ball, since it's using this animation setting with the name of ball bounce, this ball is tied to this keyframes animation. It's going to play this keyframes animation. Now you can set from and to make an animation that has 2 keyframes, a first frame and a last frame. And what we do to make a sprite sheet play very quickly is we go through the background position setting. So let's set that background position. I'm going to put 0 pixels because I want it to start at the first frame, the first image in that sprite sheet. Then I can just copy that line and put it in the 2, and we're going to go to -300 pixels. and that will go to the keyframe 2. And all of the transitional frames will play in the sequence automatically. So you're setting the first frame, which is keyframe 1, and then you're targeting the last frame, which is keyframe 2. And all of the transitional frames will play in between those automatically. Now let's go ahead and preview this in Firefox. So you can see we have a bouncing ball. Let's preview this in Internet Explorer. Nice bouncing ball animation. And let's preview this in Google Chrome, which it doesn't play because Google Chrome is not up to speed yet with the other browsers. They haven't removed their prefix from the standardized syntax for all of this stuff. So all you got to do is go in here and copy this line, put another one right above the animation line, and then put WebKit. Now you have your animation property with the WebKit prefix. So for this to work in WebKit browsers, you just have to put a WebKit prefix on the keyframes animation rule as well. So you put WebKit here, an extra line for the animation, and then you put an extra keyframes animation that has the WebKit prefix on it. Then you can test this in Google Chrome, and now it works in all the major modern browsers. And it's kind of a pain in the butt that we still have to use the WebKit prefix, but that should go away very soon. Hopefully the Google Chrome development team will get on that right away and remove all of their prefixes from all their CSS animation stuff, because all the other browsers have a while back. So I'll let you guys add your own WebKit prefixes to everything. I'm going to remove it because pretty soon it won't even be needed. And this is the code example I'll have on the page. Now this PNG file, the dimensions is 50 pixels high and 300 pixels wide. That's how it has a 6 frames that are 50 pixels each. And I'm also going to make this file available to you because it might be hard to copy these graphics right out of the video. It could be done, but it might be difficult for you to copy the graphics right out of the video. But I'll make it available at adamkhoury.com. I'll put a link in the description of the video. You guys can actually go and get this file and then just use the code from the video to power this sprite sheet. So let's say if we go in there and we take this from 0.7 to 0.2, watch how fast this thing bounces. So you see, that's something you can't do with an animated GIFs. That's what makes sprites so much more special, because you can actually program them in so many ways to do things and dynamically that you cannot do with animated GIFs. And some people would like to disregard sprites and just use animated GIFs, but they're disregarding a whole world of dynamics. For video game graphics, anything from video game graphics all the way to website skinning and all that good stuff can be accomplished with sprite sheets. It's pretty cool. And I'll be discussing more about it. I can't put out all of the advanced information from the Sprite Programming Mastery ebook, but I can show all the free preview material, and that's what I'll do, just to generate some interest in sprite sheet programming.